Conor O'Neill joins us. He covers Wake Forest and on 365 Sports. Conor, well, they got him back quicker, a lot maybe sooner than most people think. How much of just a big breath of fresh air and adrenaline did that help the program?
That's you've hit the nail exactly on the head. I think, if you asked back on August 10th what the best case scenario would be, I don't even know if Dave Clawson tells you that it was getting Sam Hartman back in week 2. I think that was a huge bullet dodged. I think it speaks to kind of the benefits of having a college that has a teaching hospital attached to it. Wake Forest Baptist is a pretty well-renowned hospital, and the CEO happened to be one of the world's leading authorities on the condition that Sam had with the blood clot. So everything seems to have worked out almost better than could have been hoped for.
Conor, this team looks a lot like they did last year. They can score. They can give you panics on defense sometime. But do you think that they are maybe a little bit ahead or behind where they were last season?
I think they're kind of where they were. I think offensively there's a little more concern than there was last year, especially at this point in the year. Their running game has looked pretty it has not distinguished itself, I think is the best way to put that. They ran for over 200 yards in the opener, but that was against an FCS team. And in the last 2 games, they failed to get to 100. They basically abandoned the run against Liberty. And that's, their playmakers are on the outside and their playmakers are at slot receiver and quarterback, but you can't be that one-dimensional. You especially can't be that one-dimensional against a team like Clemson that's one of the few defenses in the country that can actually take away your strength, not just mitigate. So they're going to have to find some balance offensively. And then I think Wake's defense is better than last year. I know they gave up 36 points to Liberty, but they bailed the offense out in a few situations. Aside from just a couple runs that got broken on them, they really played pretty well last weekend.
Take me through just the kind of the drama of that game. I mean, I know that Liberty's got a pretty good little quarterback there in Caden Salter. We saw him at Cedar Hill High School here in Texas and was at Tennessee originally, but he really gave them something, and that was a heck of a game, man. Take us through getting the stop and being able to win that game when all was said and done.
Yeah, well, in the interest of full transparency, I wasn't there. I covered Duke also, and it was just the logistics of it were easier for me to cover Duke that day than Wake. I rewatch every Wake game, I DVR and go through it and watch some plays, 10 or 15 times to really get a sense of it. And I mean, it comes right down to it. I think the biggest thing in my takeaway, it's so easy for me to say this in hindsight with listening to the post game presser and talking to a couple players this week already, that Wake did not have a good week of preparation. And their players have admitted that. Dave Clawson has admitted that. And so when you have that, plus you find yourself at the end of the first half, you're up 20-5. You know that you haven't played well and you're still up by 2 touchdowns. Yeah, you're going to feel like you pretty much are in the catbird seat there. So when Liberty comes out and punches you in the mouth with 2 quick strike touchdowns in the second half and all of a sudden leads 23-20, you need to do some soul searching and do some deep digging. That third quarter, I mean, that was a disastrous quarter. And if Wake didn't have the fourth quarter that they did, you guys probably aren't talking to me this week. This game, this game doesn't have much national appeal. It's 3-0 Clemson on the way to take care of business in Winston-Salem before going home to essentially wrap up the Atlantic Division if they can beat NC State.
Well, I love your honesty. That's a great point. Truist Field, Wake Forest is not going to have a large stadium. Everyone thinks about the ones with 75,000 or 100,000. Baylor's McLean Stadium is somewhere in that 45 to 50 range, 31,500. How lit up will it be? I know it's a day game, but how loud can that get for a game like with Clemson in town?
It'll get loud. The interesting part to me is always how much of the crowd, it's a blackout for Wake. So how much of the crowd is actually going to be in black and how much of it is going to be in orange? Mm-hmm. Are we going to feel like it's Halloween a month early? I think Wake has kind of tried to strategically plan against that by pricing the tickets as high as they have. I think like the lowest prices are still $80, $90 to $100. So you're trying to kind of fend against all the people who, you know, wake up on Saturday or you know, have some change of plans late in their week and they say, oh, we can get a ticket here for $20 and just ride up the interstate to Winston-Salem. So it's the atmosphere more than the fan. You're never going to have the numbers of a College Station or a Big House or anywhere like that, but you've got to get the atmosphere. And I think that's what will be electric. That will be, that should give Wake a little bit of a home field advantage.
Conor, Clemson hasn't played anybody yet, but even in that, you can see that their offense has taken strides forward from last year where they were stuck in the mud for the entire season. How much does this concern Wake when they're looking at Clemson team that looks to be maybe not all the way back to where they were, but on the way back?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a concern, right? I mean, DJ Uiagalelei is not, you know, maybe to a little bit, but not to the extent that he was last year, throwing bounce passes to open receivers. I mean, his fundamentals, his confidence, everything was just shot last year. And they scored 48 on Wake Forest in that game. I think DJ threw 2 or 3 passes in the entire second half, and they just ran the ball right down Wake's throats. And they benefited from a couple turnovers that gave them short fields. But yeah, it's, you know, Will Shipley was banged up last year. He's healthy. He looks like, you know, we're in the Carolinas, and he's from Charlotte, so he looks like Christian McCaffrey light, and that's really going to test Wake's kind of recalibrated defense under Brad Lambert. The thing I'm interested to see is, you know, I made this point earlier in talking to somebody. You had Taj Boyd was throwing to guys like Mike Williams and Sammy Hopkins. Then you had Deshaun Watson throwing to Hunter Renfrow and Nuke Hopkins. You had this long line of just NFL caliber receivers come through Clemson, and I don't know if they have that anymore. So that's an area where I think it's kind of overlooked because you just figure, oh, they're Clemson, they have NFL receivers, but I don't know if those guys are still at that level anymore.
Conor, thank you very much. It's a stretch now for Wake Forest. They have Clemson at home, at Florida State in Tallahassee, and they turn around and then host Army, which is that unique game because of how they play, and they're pretty good. And so that will be a fun 3-week stretch to see about Wake Forest. Conor O'Neill with the Substack. He covers Wake Forest with us on 365 Sports. It's 4:55.